You're listening to the Best Morning Routine Ever podcast, the show that proves no one stumbles upon success ever. With your host, Lou Need. Every Mondays and Thursdays, we deliver cold hard evidence behind the power of a robust morning routine. Get ready to be transformed by the renewal of your mind.
Hello, morning enthusiasts. Welcome to the Best Morning Routine Ever podcast. This is Lunid, your host, and today I have the privilege of introducing a phenomenal man, an AI and data scientist into the show. His name is David Yakobovitch. David is a professor, a keynote speaker. He's a podcast host of Humane. David is a principal data scientist at Galvanize, responsible for delivering global instructions, curriculum development, and customer support. He also partners with engagement managers and account executives for the corporate arm of the business. David, welcome to the show.
Lenine, thanks so much for having me. It's going to be fun.
Going to be fantastic. We have a similar background, and I'm excited about data. I'm very enthusiastic to hear what you will bring to the table. Today, I would love to discuss AI for social good. So looking at data science, and AI for all. And we're looking at AI research. So any trends, any new products and applications that are brewing and upcoming. We'll be looking at automation, so robots and auto systems.
Those topics are all phenomenal. And as you mentioned, I have this AI podcast called Humane, where I get to hear from the best and brightest of the industry who are working in data science and AI and what's new, what's real, what's hype, and happy to share some of that with your audience.
Yeah, let's talk about the courses that you teach. I know you are well versed. You do AI, you do software development in Java, full stack web development and data engineering. So let's give us a snippet of your curriculum that as a professor.
Sure. There's so much technology out there today. And typically the work that we do at Galvanize is split between the software engineering and the data science technology stacks. I sit on the data science and AI side. So that means whether it's working with the R or Python programming language, going into database tools such as SQL and MongoDB, or even doing some AWS infrastructure with automation software like Ansible and Terraform and Docker to spin up the technology you need for your web development. So I'm really all about setting up data systems, getting them live, and then thinking which algorithms are going to help you empower your clients to get better results and to better serve your customers. Our business also does have the full stack side of the business, which includes cloud native development, Java, the whole test-driven development stack, and a lot of excellent software there, primarily from one of the acquisitions we had in 2018 with Hack Reactor, which was the #1 software bootcamp in the US. So super cool to work in the space and work a lot with enterprise customers all over the US and world. I also give back some of my time. So I do sit as an advisory for Software Carpentry, which does pro bono data science academies for PhD and postdocs throughout the US and the world. And I support a lot of startups and love to give advisory in both data and AI.
Fantastic. What are some of the companies and clients that you've worked with in the past?
Our companies are ultimately Fortune 500 clients, ones that are very traditional. You could think that they could have 10,000 plus employees and they're doing phenomenal at their jobs. But the truth is, as we're seeing in all these industry reports from Deloitte and KPMG and McKinsey Institute, is no longer do corporate companies last for 100 years. The life cycle of a Fortune 500 has decreased from 40 to now in 2019, perhaps even 15 years. And the reason is the speed at which technology is changing in the fourth industrial revolution. And so when Fortune 500s come to us, they say, we're looking to reinvent our employees by reskilling and upskilling them, making sure they're ready for tomorrow. You could think of it as in the past, we get our degrees, we're all and, some of us spend in the US, right, upwards of $250,000 on our college degrees between undergrad, grad, and maybe even post. And well, now we're in this new micro learning environment where maybe we're going to spend a few $1,000s every few years over the duration of our careers. So it's companies like that will come to us and say, we need some reskilling and let's build customized solutions with you to best serve our employees so that we can have them, right? We can keep them in-house for 20, 30 years and no need to look outside of house for counsel.
Yeah. So it's employee development. It's absolutely true. I noticed a shift happening with the help of technology and machine learning, that there is a need for tailored learning. It's only core competencies, right? They're not looking to get the gen eds. They don't need all that extra general education that was offered with traditional education or traditional going back to school. And as a professor to another professor, we're sitting back thinking, oh man, this is shifting fast.
It's shifting so fast. And when you're a company with technology running in traditional tools like Microsoft Excel, the big question you ask every day is, do I want to stay with Excel? Do I want to move to Python? And it really becomes a two-pronged question. First, what do you need to be successful as your organization to be lean and with the best technology to move nimble and fast and efficient? But second, what are your customers and clients using? If all your customers and clients are using Excel and SAP and a lot of traditional technologies, which have now become evolutionary, which I'll get to in a bit, then that's fine. But if all your clients are using Python and Tableau and Looker, those are things you want to think about adopting so you can best serve them and help them stay ahead of the curve. Now, I mentioned Excel and SAP because I know you work a lot in this space, and I originally got started in Excel. I started out in actuarial science, working in Excel sheets with macros and Visual Basic, and connecting these two databases. And one of the big questions I get when I start working with new employees at companies is Excel going away? Should I keep learning? Should I invest in it? And my number one answer is Excel is not going away. Whether it's Lotus Notes from the 80s or Excel in the 90s or the new Excel. Excel, there was an announcement from Microsoft just about a year and a half ago, and they said Microsoft Excel is moving away from the Visual Basic C# type context for the macros, moving into Python. Now, they mentioned somewhere between 2019 and 2020 will be the rollout. So I imagine it's going to be gradual. But already today, there are now extensions that allow you to, in your Excel spreadsheet or in Microsoft Power BI, start to type in Python formulas. You no longer have to keep it in the traditional Excel context. So
really? Yeah. I did not know that.
yeah. So it's super cool how now traditional tools are emerging and are becoming more cutting edge. And I think for that tool particularly, it's because Microsoft is traditionally a very research driven organization. I had the opportunity in the end of July this year to sit down on a panel with the founder of Cortana, which is, Microsoft's visual digital assistant. And we got to speak about how the research has evolved from what was classic Excel, what's become into cloud software, and now what's in all this new AI and text and audio and voice. And it's amazing the clip at which technology is evolving.
It's really fascinating to see because I'm very enthusiastic about data, and I'm doing a data analysis course for nonprofits where I teach them how to take their surveys, their questionnaires, and quantify it, right? So they're going to, how do we add numbers to these so that you can better visualize your data to make make fact-based decisions to help you with grant writing purposes?
Yeah, I was just going to say that is so impactful and meaningful. And I've had the opportunity to work on a lot of proposals, predominantly for enterprise companies. But as well, what we do at Galvanize is we have a foundation where we give away over $1 million of scholarship a year to underprivileged students who cannot afford, a $15,000, $20,000 boot camp, right? And in addition to that, we work a lot in the community. So we work with the New York City government and a lot of government agencies to offer certain boot camps where we retrain people in the city who make $18,000 a year and get them up to speed in 6 months, making $85,000 a year. So it's the new digital age where anyone could be a coder and anyone could have a new career. It's amazing to see that happen today.
And a lot of people are signing up for it because that is our future. AI is the future, and it's good that there's so much interest and engagement taking place in it.
Yeah, and I think when you think about grant writing, I've had the opportunity to advise Community Solutions, which does a lot with veteran homelessness and homelessness in general in the U.S. between San Francisco and Detroit and other metropolitan cities. And I gave them a workshop actually last year when we were in Detroit talking about, for a lot of the grant writers, what can you do to get to the next level to implement data, whether it's for your proposals or if it is for delivery of better serving your customers. And some of the key takeaways was starting with what is possible today. And that means with analytics and dashboards and business intelligence. I think there's often the race to AI, the race to data science. But you know what? Before you jump all the way there and thinking of these, big words that are hyped and companies raising a lot of money, start with what is proven and start by tracking everything. The more you understand about your data and metrics, you're going to start to uncover insights that you didn't even know exist.
Yeah, because at first it's just raw data. It's useless information until you direct it, until you tell it what to do, and you ask the right questions. It's who I always tell my nonprofit leaders, who is driving the data. Make sure you know what questions you needed what you needed to do for you. And I've always want to get into what the difference is, because you're doing machine learning, which is a step above the visualization portion of it. It comes before it, right? Because we're looking at Tableau, SAS, SPSS. All these are platforms to actually input your data where you can actually start to graph it, start to visualize charts and pie charts to see what percentage of the demographics are you serving.
Sure. And it's all about the goal that you're aiming for. And as an organization, you're going to have a goal in the short term, maybe 6 months, the near term, which would be even less than that, maybe 3 months, and the mid and long term, which could be out a year to 5 years. But it's just like if you wanted to get fit, right? If you wanted to go to the gym and you buy a gym membership, that's great. But if you don't start working out, if you don't start eating clean, you're not going to see the results. The same things with the data, right? You got to start creating analytics, and don't worry if it's perfect, because it's going to evolve over time, and you're going to add on more insights, more visualizations. And then once you start knowing what the problem maybe that you want to solve to either serve more customers, make more money, reduce costs, then you can start looking at the machine learning or AI to help you with those problems.
Yeah, because what AI, the applications will improve just seamless consumer experiences, integrated human lives with machine is essentially what it does. So tell us, what new AI cases or products are you working on? Yeah,
so in research today, I think the biggest work is in two subfields for artificial intelligence. And AI is this automation, right? Automation of tasks that humans could do, but may not want to do, and the AI could do better, right? So the goal is to get to the human capability or better. And the two sub cases are in both computer vision and natural language processing. Computer vision is you take a picture and it tells you, is this a car that's damaged or not damaged? Natural language processing is taking a customer story as they're talking to you in real time, translating the audio to text, and then uncovering sentiment to know whether a customer is pleased or not pleased. So those are two interesting subfields of AI which have taken over in the last few years. And computer vision is a lot more developed than natural language processing. But in 2019, we're seeing some major breakthroughs, which is exciting. On my end, some of the research that we've been working on that's quite nice is working with APIs. And these APIs are data gateways from companies, and using them to go into real-time live monitoring scenarios. So that means if you're a company that's getting new data into your system all the time, Can you take that and put that into a dashboard that's real time changing? Can you put that into an insight that you can predict where the metric's going to move up and have a lift or have a negative downturn, and use that information to hedge your bets, right? Minimize the risk and maximize your returns. So I've been doing that with a lot of financial clients. And I think that is some of the big trends that we're going to start seeing more later in 2019 and into 2020 is having this seamless experience with the real-time data and having better voice to text capabilities and better image and video capabilities.
Okay, so it's on and developing. What do you think is being overhyped around the AI conversation by the media? Because there's a lot of developments. There's a lot of it's working to seamlessly enhance the experience for consumers. But what do you think is happening around the social media portion of it?
So if I were to say today, of all the companies I talk to, I advise startups, I work with Fortune 500 clients. Let's say I have 100 of these clients, and they all tell me we're doing AI for X, right? We're doing AI. And I say, okay, interesting. Let me hear your story. Let me talk to your personas, to your stakeholders. I would say of those 100 clients, probably 30 of them even know what AI is, of which 20 of them have development in the pipeline, and only 10 really have AI live today in their products. Less than 30% of companies even have AI live. So I think there's been a lot of hype, and that has, yes, accelerated what we're known as the fourth industrial revolution, a lot of investment, a lot of technology coming through. I definitely think AI is game changing. I think it is going to lead the way for more productivity and a society that's going to have information on all the time. However, I do think a lot of companies are being somewhat reckless and careless in how they're using the words, even though it's not there yet. And, a classic case is a company that 5 years ago was saying, we're doing big data. Now they could be saying we're doing data science 2 years ago. And today they could be saying we're doing AI today, but they're really doing mostly the same thing. They're trying to find their market fit. Now, although I said that's reckless and careless, think of it like a startup. What does a startup do? They're constantly pivoting. They're trying to find the market fit. So I do think it's commendable that companies want to implement and work with AI technology. However, I do think disclaimers are needed. I think there needs to be ethical conversations around when AI is real, when it is not real, if there's bias in the systems, and when you're interacting with a human versus a machine.
I'm thinking AI companies, some of them are Amazon, IBM, Cisco, Intel, Apple. Would you agree?
All those companies are traditional hardware and software companies, which now have AI as a service as part of their offerings. None of them are core AI companies. IBM, traditionally hardware, physical mainframes. Today, their Watson platform, which recently spun off, right? But they have now their new neural network modeler, their SPSS modeler, and these tools that are using AI. Intel, I had the opportunity to consult them a couple of years ago, and they have their AI division in San Francisco where they have all things in drones and VR and AR. But it's not being used too much yet. They did come out with the modulus USB drive, which is this USB AI powered chip for anyone to do AI, even if you have a budget computer. Cisco, traditionally, right, IT, routers, communications, networking. I think now they're having better disaster recovery and business continuity processes put in place through AI. Amazon traditionally was about supply chain management. That's with managing inventory and product. And I think for them, the AI is about smarter routing and smarter prediction. Of course, if you're someone who works in industry, you could say that's just in time, but it's been evolving. And I think we're starting to see that also on their AWS platform. However, at the beginning of August in 2019, AWS had its slowest growth since the beginning of the platform. What Amazon, just as reference for everyone, this is a great benchmark, says a product must grow 40% year over year. 40%. If we can achieve at least 40% growth year over year, that's great. That means we're growing at almost an exponential rate over time. But this is the first quarter over quarter result where AWS only grew 37%. So it's interesting. I don't know what that means as their technology is evolving, but probably means more investments in AI tech and other services to bridge that gap. So I don't know if I hit every company that you just named, but I wanted to just take the opportunity to show how a lot of these traditional companies, which are all Fortune 500s, have reinvented themselves by investing in R&D, investing in education, and being willing to try on new technology even before it's ready for the mass market.
Yeah, and then that growth, research development that they're investing the monetarily and the time to actually grow. Because you're right, it is about at the end of it all, they want to improve their services. They want to improve their product. They want to be able to capture the data more accurately.
And the key is to invest in your company. You know, the average company in the United States only invests between 1.5 and 3% of their P&L for their, annual revenue in research and development. Companies like IBM, AWS, Cisco, these ones you mentioned, some of them invest up to 7 to 10% of their annual revenue in R&D. And that's why they're having a lot of the growth, because they're seeing the technology before others, and some of it doesn't work. We could think back a couple of years ago to the Amazon Fire phone, right? I think Amazon lost it was somewhere between $600 and $900 million on the failed phone. Mm-hmm. But that phone inspired the new versions of the Kindle, the new versions of the Alexa Show. So sometimes the technology doesn't hit the market at the right timing, but there's a bigger payoff that you'll see over time.
Talking about failing forward, right?
Absolutely.
You learn from it. Now, with machine intelligence, it's essentially performing tasks that normally would require human intelligence, right? Such as you mentioned, visual perception, speech recognition, decision making. And with all that data being gathered, and sometimes unconsciously, without even us knowing, let's take Facebook for a second, right? What happens? So there's a trade-off. There's that loss of privacy and choice. That is a trade-off for personalized products. What are people not worried about and that they should be?
It's so interesting because the US as a country has always been First Amendment, right to privacy, right to speech, and that is extremely commendable. However, when it comes to data and AI is not sentient yet, so it doesn't really think about your privacy. It thinks about getting the best path for a solution, given the data you give and the technique that you choose. So I think what we're having is an emergence of conversations around privacy, conversations around ethics and fair practices, bias in the media, bias in technology recommendations. I'm not sure we should really be worried about that. I'm glad that the conversation's happening because we do have a lot of startups showing up to help now bridge the gap and maybe evolve some of those conversations. And that has created new subfields of AI known as explainable AI and interpretable AI, which means when I solve a problem, tell me why the problem solved, how my data was accurately classified versus inaccurately. So I think that's good. I think what people should be worried about is less about, is it being fair and ethical? Because researchers are doing their best to do that. Even at major companies like Facebook and Google, there are committees set up to do their best to build these systems, to think about diversity, inclusiveness, and minimizing bias. But it's that I would say, don't worry as much what is Google and Facebook doing, but when you're interacting with systems in your life, are they maybe messing up around you? So by that, I mean thinking about choice. For example, if you apply for a mortgage for a house, we're in a great time in America in the sense that the Fed just gave a rate cut, the first rate cut since 2008, just went down a quarter basis point, which means that all mortgage rates are going down a quarter basis point. So long term, we have to see what that means. But in the short term, that means that mortgages rates are going to go down. Maybe more people will buy houses and invest in real estate. However, just because the mortgage rate goes down doesn't mean you're automatically going to be approved for a mortgage. Many of us know that the process to get an apartment or a house is very lengthy, a lot of documentation, and sometimes you get a rejection.
Yeah.
And just because you get a rejection doesn't mean it was your fault. It's whoever did the system, whether it was by a human underwriter or an AI underwriter, said, you're not that ideal person. But I tell people, you have the choice. When we're in the United States, you have the rights to dispute. You have the right to escalate. You have the right to ask why. And when companies tell you that you don't, I say, stand up for your rights. Mm-hmm. What do I mean by that? I was one of the members on the board for March for Our Lives because my high school was Stoneman Douglas, the one that had that fatal shooting a couple of years ago. And just like every other high school, we could have, just silenced ourselves and said, oh, school shootings happen. There's nothing you can do. Oh, well, this is America, right? But no, the high school got together, the alumni got together. So we're going to take this national. We are going to fight for our rights. And lo and behold, it led to a national movement in the National Mall of 800,000 people. Where now, within the last 18 months, we're starting to see a lot of legislation passed to protect students and many different policies across states. I think the same thing is going to happen in AI. And I think that by us standing up for our rights, we can see those changes. One final example on that is Equifax. A lot of us know that credit is important in the United States based on how consumerism is set up. However, they had this major data breach just in the past couple of years. And a lot of people were in uproar about it. And, some people took them to small claims court, got $5,000, the maximum you can get, because the judges were saying Equifax, you're irresponsible. But most Americans don't do that. So we have a lot of people who have had our data information leaked and have no recourse of action. And so what happened is a few thousand Americans created a class action on Equifax in July, and suddenly it went live, and it went live online. And because of the FCC and all these legislation bodies, they said you have to advertise that this is live, so Americans are informed. In the first 24 hours of this settlement, they had over 10 million Americans apply to get the settlement. And 10 million is just for the $125 settlement, and then potentially access for up to $5,000 of compensatory claims. That could put Equifax out of business.
Right.
People are not aware that they have the right, and Equifax actually does not have the right to do nothing. A lot of traditional companies need to be willing to protect their data systems and to show that they care. But when they don't, there is going to be action, and there's going to be conversations to see how we can build better systems. Some companies will fall from that, but most will iterate like the companies we shared earlier. So my final takeaway on that is that people should, in essence, not necessarily be worried, like being, thinking about, oh gosh, how is Big Brother watching me? But thinking about when decisions are happening to you and others that you don't think are right, and you think technology is part of it, to stand up and discover what's going on.
Yeah, just speak up. There is power in numbers, right? You get a group of people together, laws are being changed, just like the example you gave about the high school.
Yeah, time's up. Time's up,
Yeah. Tell us, what is your morning routine like?
Yeah, I typically wake up at 5:30 in the morning and get a nice little hearty breakfast and my coffee. Caffeine definitely helps me run really well. I'll usually do a 10-minute meditation to get very focused. And I will make sure that I have deadlines set for the day. I will have everything calendared. One of the biggest things I work by, which I think is so vital in any company, startup or Fortune 500, is you have to be the gatekeeper of your time and protect your time. One of the biggest challenges in America today is people are not willing to say no. And I think you should be willing to say no, especially when things don't align. So, I will guard my time, whether that's on research or curriculum or teaching. When I'm out there, I dress how I want to feel. I think that's really important. We've seen that from a lot of TED Talks. So I'm always dressed to the nines in my suit and my tie, and it makes me feel great. It makes my students feel great. It's a great impression. What else do I do in the morning? I generally like to work out in the morning, but for days that I don't, since I'm in New York City, I do take the bike into the city. So I do bike and I make sure I can always get exercise, constantly get my blood pressure running, constantly get that adrenaline and energy so I can feel alive, awake, alert, and enthusiastic. I think everything that anyone does in their work is about inspiring you to be the best possible you. And in order to do that, you have to do the work that you love, and it ignites you. And by ignites you, I mean, it creates this chemical reaction in your body and brain that you're ready to show up and you are going to deliver your best. And when you know there's something that is not your best, you find who you can partner with and collaborate with to bridge that gap and make sure you can flawlessly execute for your clients, for your partner, and for everyone you're working with in your life. So it's a little bit on morning routines and some habits.
Yeah, your exercise, you tweak it because you are able to actually commute to work with the bike, so it fits your lifestyle. It's already taking you to work. I like that. And I love the piece you mentioned about timekeeping, making sure you're your timekeeper. You are in control of your time and your calendar because you have to organize it. People are running around, myself included, we're too busy. And it's essentially because of lack of control.
It is so about lack of control. And I will say, you don't have to be in control of everything. I think as society, we are very obsessive about being in control. And to a certain extent, that is healthy because we want things to be done right and good enough and our way. But those are all compensatory measures that we could be willing to show up for others and say, are you willing to fail forward? Are you willing to take on a new team member to see how this interaction can occur and what can you learn from that and how can you iterate? I think if we're willing to give up control, then you have the opportunity to become better. And I know that sounds very theoretical, but it means that there's no limits. Often when you want to have control, we're living in our small bubble, and that means doing the same routine every day, every time, all the time. And I think routine is good, as we're discussing now, in a morning habit and morning routine to a certain capacity, but change as well is good because it causes us to be willing to think bigger and to think of new opportunities. And whether those are in data and AI, or that's just in having a daily success, it's critical for you to continue to grow your career and your life.
Absolutely. It's inevitable. Change is inevitable. So be adaptable, be willing to go with the flow and be resourceful. Know what you need to learn to stay abreast of the changes.
Yeah, being willing to ask questions. I'm in New York City and there is 10 million plus people about, and each day with the commuting, and such amazing thought leaders. And I think when you ask someone a question who's more of an expert than you, what do they typically do? Do they say, no, I'm not going to respond? Or they say, what? Me? You thought to ask me? I feel honored. That's amazing. Yep. Let me give you some thoughts. And you get an amazing guidance. I think one quote I heard a few weeks ago, which is great, is when you ask for money, you get advice. And when you ask for advice, you get money. So that could mean clients, that could mean work, that could mean, greater success in how you define that for your life. So continue asking advice and collaborating with your peers.
That's valuable. I really like that. I will take that into consideration. And the upside is these individuals that are willing to offer help, they understand the need of adding value to others' lives. They understand that they didn't get there alone. They didn't get there by themselves. We all need people to help take us to the next level.
Yeah, that's right.
And so they're wide open and ready to provide. So you just got to creatively, assertively ask and ask the right questions.
That's right. And in this digital age, it's also feeling free to reach out, just how we're having a conversation. We have so much in common as professors and educators and being in the space. But we didn't fly across the country to, meet each other in the morning to do a live recording. But we said, hey, we're going to take advantage of technology and connect and make sure that we could build new inroads that didn't exist before, which I commend you for.
Thank you. And reach a global audience, because we could do a conference, a workshop and reach 200 people, or we can do what we're doing and reach 2,000.
Absolutely. It's fantastic. So this is great. I really love talking all about these. And, if I were to share like one big piece of advice for those getting into data and AI and all these systems today, it starts by doing something today. And every day that means starts by doing something. So don't feel like you're paralyzed and in fear of, I don't know how I'm going to create a dashboard, or I don't know how I'm going to store the right database for my data, or what algorithm do I want. Who cares? That doesn't matter just yet. Start doing something. And if you start with small goals, maybe it's that dashboard, maybe it's some analytics, maybe it's tracking new data points, you're going to start getting further than you were. And that's going to unlock new opportunities and questions to continue moving yourself and or your organization as a technology forward thinking AI first company.
For real. And that's picking up momentum quick. You take the first step, you're picking up momentum, you're picking up stride. It's like a snowball effect. And even if you need to bring in, the companies need to bring individuals like yourself in, they might be considering a boot camp, a crash course to help with it. But I absolutely agree with you 100%. Start now, start today, because it's moving fast. Knowledge is what Robert Kiyosaki said. Knowledge is life shelf is 18 months. Which we're changing so fast. And so you want to be able to adapt.
It's so amazing because I'll share one other point there that I really found fascinating on the knowledge. Its life shelf is 18 months is, everything's pretty cyclical. So I've been in some, conference events where I've spoken to several people who are, in their late 40s and 50s, and they've been in industry, right, for a few years. And they say, oh, I see some of the same trends from 10 years ago back now, or some of the same trends from 15 years ago back now. So yes, it does have the 18-month shelf life in that it is momentum, right? And when it's there, you want to implement and act on it now. But there will be cyclical cycles. Mm-hmm. And I think for those of us listening today who are new to their career, just be willing to, participate and become involved. And those who've been in your career for, over 10 years to constantly think, is this similar to a trend that previously existed? And if so, what part of this could be successful this time? Or which part should I, think of more as research and development?
Right. David, tell us, how can we connect with you?
Yeah, Luni, this is an absolute pleasure. I generally say that one of the best ways to reach out to me is with Galvanize. We're galvanize.com. Galvanize means excited, ready to learn. So you could always check out our services there. And I have my AI podcast, Humane. So that's HUMAIN. Got a little play in words. And in French, humane means to be human. So it also comes from that language. And so any platform, it's out there. There's also the website humanepodcast.com. So if you prefer not to download an app, you can listen directly on the website.
Thank you for coming on the show, David. It's been a delight.
Thanks so much. Been a pleasure. And looking forward to seeing the best morning routine ever for each and every one of you today and every day.
Appreciate it. Talk to you soon.
Thanks, Lenny.
All right, morning enthusiasts, that's it for today's show. Thank you for tuning in. If you love the Best Morning Routine Ever podcast, we'd love to hear from you. So go ahead and subscribe, rate, and give a review on iTunes or Google Play. While you're at it, tell a friend about the show. Be sure to visit bestmorningroutineever.com and our Facebook group to join the conversation, access the show notes, and discover our fantastic free bonus content. Until next time,